Jolly, spending another Monday night with you is always beyond explanation.
Beyond compare. You can hardly speak. And our guest tonight, I'm thrilled to have. We're thrilled in Philadelphia, covering the world of sports. He's only in the Hall of Fame and many other places. Mr. Ray Didinger, how are you, Ray?
I'm good, Paul. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you.
Domo, always great to see you.
Good to have you here, Ray.
Guys, yesterday's game, I mean, I thought this game would be an easy one. I said so. They're cruising 22-0. And we'll get to how it got to that point as well. And then momentum obviously turned, and a lot of it was placed on our head coach, Nick Sirianni, the Eagles head coach, Nick Sirianni. Damo, what happened yesterday with the coach, with the players? How do you reconcile Jacksonville coming within the Kobe Dean interception of maybe winning that game?
Well, I mean, you can't put – I mean, I'm not going to blame it on Nick. I mean, I don't agree with most of what he did, but
the momentum
it was
changed,
it was kind of like they just took their foot off the gas. Although Nick denied that today, but the defense in the second half went from, I think they allowed 1 first down and 31 yards in the first half to watching Trevor Lawrence slice and dice them for a while there. Thankfully, I mean, if not for the 3 takeaways, if not particularly the last one by Nakobe Dean, they lose this game. But they won it, and that's, as they always say, that's the important thing.
Ray, Jalen Hurts, 4 games in a row without a turnover, 12 touchdowns, no picks. If I told you when it was 22-0 that they would barely survive, you would have told me what?
I wouldn't have believed it, because at that point they were in complete command. They were able to do pretty much what they wanted to do offensively. Saquon Barkley was having another big game, and Jaguars couldn't get a first down. I mean, that game was as over as a game could be over, but it turned around, and I think a couple things happened. The Jaguars went to a hurry-up sort of style of offense, which certainly suits Trevor Lawrence. I mean, that's kind of the way he ran his whole college career, and it looks to me like he's still more comfortable doing that. And once he got to doing that, they got in an offensive rhythm, and they got hot, and they started to move the ball. And then, we talked a little bit. Paul just mentioned it. Some of the decisions that Nick Sirianni made kept the game closer than it had any right to be. I mean, if he had taken as many easy points as were out there during the game, he would have been 3 touchdowns up with 7 minutes to go, and it wouldn't even been a contest.
Yeah. We can say all we want about how many points he left, and we'll certainly talk about that. And there's one decision. I mean, the 57-yard field goal would have only put him up 8, and the other decisions and throwing it on 4th and a millimeter when you have the tush push that failed twice in other situations. But the one, Ray and Paul, that really got to me, and it's not about just math. It's about game situation and understanding game situation. When you had 16-0 right before halftime, 20 seconds, whatever it was, you're up 2 scores. You need an extra point. In fact, they kicked the extra point, and there was a penalty on Jacksonville. That single decision by Nick Sirianni is so idiotic, I couldn't even comprehend it. What was the worst decision he made, in your opinion, yesterday, Ray?
Well, that was one of them. I thought that I couldn't – everything he was doing, I couldn't figure out what he was doing. I was just watching it, and I said, no, he's really not going to do this.
Professor Irwin Corey?
I mean, every one of them. I mean, they're insisting to go for 2 points every time, passing up 2 obviously eminently makeable field goals pretty early. And then the decision that he makes at the end of the game to attempt a 57-yard field goal with a kicker who hasn't made one over 50 yards all year when you're on the wrong side of the 2-minute warning and you've got only 5-point lead, and if he misses, you're giving him the ball at midfield. I mean, it's just there were times I just wanted to go down there and shake him. Say, what are you thinking?
Yeah.
I mean, that's if they had – listen, there was enough fallout from that game and people questioning what he was doing and what he was thinking, with a win, could you imagine what it would have been like in the city if they had lost? And they could have very easily lost. Think about that.
Oh, yeah.
You could have lost a 22-point lead against one of the worst teams in professional football at home.
Yep.
Okay? I mean, that's fireable stuff, is really what it is.
It is, and it's interesting. A lot of people want to fire Nick. They're not going to fire him at 6-2, obviously. But Damo, to me, answer this question: the momentum is such a word that can't be explained. Justice White of the Supreme Court said he could never explain porn, but he could tell you when he saw it. Momentum is kind of like the same thing when you feel it. When you're winning a game, kicking an extra point, taking the points, keeping it boring, so to speak, doesn't give the other team any fulcrum to push from and get momentum. When you go for two and don't get it, doesn't that give the other team energy that there's no reason to even think about giving them?
To a certain degree, yeah. I mean, early on, I think he thought that it didn't, he was. This wasn't going to be a close game. He wanted to make sure that the tush push was working. I think the thing that kind of changed the whole tenor of the game was the fumble by Barkley and the touchdown that resulted from it.
Except it
because
wasn't.
that made it a 22-16 game.
Yep.
And that's why when you mentioned which one of his discretions or which one of the things he do I have the biggest problem with, the one I have a biggest problem with was when he went for it on 4th and 1 from the Jacksonville 25 rather than take an Elliott field goal, because that would have made it a two score game at that point. You always try to make it a 2-score game, no matter how early it is. And he went for it, and he not only went for it, they called the play just the pass
Ridiculous.
was just a totally it just blew up in his face. So
They just get too cute, don't they?
yeah. But they were fortunate. They won.
The guy was back.
Video be in the you pretty it's right. That
And that
I'm interested in Ray's take on this because we've disagreed on this, but he had 27 carries yesterday. He's on pace.
that
I'm interested in Ray's take on this because we've disagreed on this. But you know, he had 27 carries yesterday. He's on pace right now for 334 carries for this season. He's never had more than 200. You know, have to, have to. Well, well, if the, if the one one I think our think our I, I, they get, they get
He he's I use I use
You
this thing drawn drawn and it's he he carried he carried concern concern reason out and out and figure up and bit of big right
but go with it. But go with it.
And all looking okay, bird food roll as one line in the
Fire. Armor. No. The way. Light. Number one.
A truly unique dining experience awaits you at Fogo de Chão. Fogo de Chão awes patrons with their history and tradition of authentic Brazilian steakhouse, offering many cuts of decadent fire-roasted meats prepared over an open fire and served tableside by trained gaucho chefs. Fogo de Chão, 1337 Chestnut Street in Center City, Philadelphia. For reservations, go to www.fogo.com or call 215-636-9700.
We now return to the Great American Pub in Conshohocken for the Independence Blue Cross Monday Night Kickoff Show. Once again, here are your hosts, Paul Domowitch and Paul Jolovitz.
And welcome back to the Independence Blue Cross Monday Night Kickoff Show, live from the Great American Pub in Conshohocken. Guy, Jerry, give us a great place every week to do this, 6 to 7 every Monday. Come on out and join us. Don't forget you can watch the show live at WBCBSports.com and YouTube Live by searching WBCB Sports. Ray Didinger is our guest, Paul Domowitch our co-host. Guys, Eagles have a blessing at wide receiver with two great players, not much depth, obviously. But in my opinion, the great catch by Devontae yesterday, Ray, Devontae to me is a better route runner than AJ. AJ is a better high pointer and maybe guy who can take the ball away from the defender on 50-50 balls, but I'm not sure he's the best in football. He'd be more of an expert than me at that, but how good of a route runner is Devontae, and how much does it help Jalen?
He's outstanding. I mean, and that was the thing you saw about him when he was at Alabama, was every team that they played did everything they could to shut him down, and he was always open. He was always open. He has always been, from as far back as I never saw him in high school, obviously, but if you watched him in college, he just has a great feel for being able to create that space. And he's so well, I don't know if it's well coached or whether he just has wonderful playing instincts, but when he makes that turn, he's always coming back to the ball, which is, a lot of guys don't do that. They'll turn, but they don't come back to the ball, which you kind of have to do. You make that turn, you come back to the ball, you help create your own separation. He does that all the time. He does it in practice. He does it in training camp. It's one of the reasons why he's a great route runner. And it's the thing I really like about him is he can go through a whole game, and this kind of almost happened yesterday, where he's like a non-factor. You know, I mean, they didn't throw him. I think they had threw one ball to him in the first half, and there's no pouting, there's no upset, and there's no him coming off the field waving his hands. It's just, okay, you know, I'll get my chances. And in the fourth quarter, when you didn't have Brown and you obviously don't have Goddard, he stepped up and he made the big plays. And you know, the play, he makes the big deep cross that gets them down the field, and then makes a phenomenal catch in the end zone. That was at a time when the game was kind of now becoming somewhat up for grabs. He comes down with the ball at a time when you absolutely positively had to have it. Right now, I mean, I would take those two guys over any two wide receivers in football as a pair, because I think they complement each other so well. You described Brown really well. He's a big, physical, T.O.-like kind of presence out there who can just rip the ball away from anybody, and will get you yards after the catch. And Devontae is a guy that in third down, when you need somebody, when you have to count on somebody to get open and catch the ball, he will always do that. That's the thing about both of those guys, is they catch everything. Yep. They don't drop anything. You know, one of the things when I chart the games, and I still chart the games, I chart drops. You know how many drops I have for the Eagles receivers through 8 games?
How many?
5.
The Lions, they said, have 1.
Yeah, I read that.
Ridiculous.
I have the Eagles with 5. One of them was the Barkley one, which was a pretty big one in the Atlanta game. Yep. But among the wide receivers, these two guys, they don't drop anything. Yeah. If they can get their hands on the ball, it's caught.
Damo, you told me last week, you said, I'm hoping for one thing Sunday. I said, what is it? You said, I want to see a catch by Ben Van Susteren, an Eagle fullback. When's the last time an Eagle fullback made a catch? Of course, he got a concussion, missed the rest of the game, but how surprised were you to see that?
I wasn't. I mean, I think they're going to expand his role. He got hurt yesterday, which
Yep.
is one of the reasons why we didn't see more of it. I mean, that one for no gain. But I think you're going to see him, down
carry
near the goal line. I mean, it's a natural weapon. When they, I love that formation, the 22 personnel, where they use them in. They've going into this game, like the previous two games, he had been in there for 10 snaps as fullback, and they had rushed for like 89 yards with Barkley and Gainwell, which is phenomenal. Getting back to Smith, this is a guy that when he came out, 170 pounds. I mean, nobody thought. I mean, the question was, can he stay in one piece?
Yep.
And he's been remarkably. I mean, he doesn't get hurt much. He's turned into a valuable blocker. I mean, you add that to the fact that he's one of the most spectacular receivers in the league. And I mean, I agree. Like what Ray said, you can't. These two guys. I mean, you can't have a better pair. I mean, they certainly, if you're Jalen, you feel very fortunate to have these guys to throw to.
The funny thing is, the Giants wanted him so bad the year he came out because the Giants were hurting for receivers, and the Denver Broncos did the Eagles the biggest favor, man. Howie should have sent the Denver general manager a fruit basket because they were supposed to. Everybody thought they were going to take a quarterback, and then the Cowboys were going to take Patrick Surtain, and then the Giants were up next, and the Giants were then going to take Devontae Smith, and then the Eagles came next, and they were going to be standing there saying, "Now what do we do?" But Denver didn't do that. Denver didn't take the quarterback. They took Surtain, who was the guy that the Cowboys wanted. The Cowboys throw their hands up and say, well, there you go. And the Eagles now know, hey, we can leapfrog the Giants, get the Cowboys pick, and take Devontae Smith and just rip him off. And then the Giants, in desperation, because they're so desperate for a receiver, they draft Tony, who turns out to be a complete bust. So it's one of the fascinating things. One of the things I love about the NFL draft is that domino effect. If one team does something unexpected, it affects everybody. Sometimes you're the beneficiary of it. Sometimes you're not. But that one decision by the Broncos to take Surtain allowed the Eagles to make the deal that got them Devontae Smith.
And Devontae Smith was an above-the-radar guy. Won the Heisman Trophy. Obviously, Tom Brady, very under the radar, to say the least. Under-the-radar guys, Ray, are what makes this league fun in some ways, in all sports. Guys you just don't expect. And somebody said last season, Zach Baun's going to be a free agent with the Saints. The Eagles are going to sign him, and he's going to be unbelievable the first half, clinical in his tackling, very rarely misses, knows where he is on every play, was an edge rusher, can cover. How big of a godsend, and we can talk about Vic Fangio and expand that, but how big of a godsend has Zach Baun been to this defense?
For a team that's been hurting for linebackers for years, I mean, that's big. And, he was not completely an unknown. He was a fourth-round pick coming out of college. People knew he was a good player. But, he goes to the Saints and gets lost in the shuffle. It's one of the reasons why the Saints are a bad team. They make decisions like
fired
that.
their coach today.
Yeah, and that's decisions like that are what got Dennis Allen fired today. I mean, here's a guy that can, in the right system with the right kind of coaching, you ask him to do things that he can do, he can be a very useful player, and he's really helped. I mean, the Eagles have talked for years about the Eagles linebackers and how deficient they've been. Right now you're getting really good linebacker play. Baun has been a really, really good player for the Eagles, and you're seeing that Nakobe Dean is finally beginning to show what those of us that saw him in college knew he was capable of. I mean, he wasn't just a good player; he was a great player on that Georgia team. And it was just a matter of him getting here, understanding what the NFL was all about, and getting healthy and getting an opportunity to play. And now you're starting to see it, and week by week he's gaining confidence, and then to make that play at the end of the game yesterday has got to be a tremendous boost for him.
Yeah. Vic also knows how to use both of those guys. Zach, yesterday they blitzed, I believe they sent 5 rushers 9 times. And Zach Baun was the guy they sent most of the time, like I want to say 6 times. He was the blitzer. But Vic also uses a lot of zone blitzes where he'll back a lineman out, and previous defensive coordinators here have caught holy hell for dropping guys like Brandon Graham back and rushing somebody else. But Vic knows how to do it, and he's got people like Nakobe Dean, who is the primary guy. Yesterday they ran 2 zone blitzes. One time with Dean, and another time with Cooper DeJean. I mean, it's starting to come together, that defense. I know yesterday, the second half, they did not look particularly good when against the hurry up, but I think I think eventually, when we get to the playoffs, this defense is going to be one of its big strengths.
Guys, in my opinion, when a defense like Dom was talking about, you can stop the opponent, and the opponent can have no yards literally the entire game, and that's one thing. And obviously, I'm stretching a point. But great defenses are made by turnovers, by turning the ball over, by increasing the number of possessions you get, by putting the fear of the turnover into the other team. And obviously with the picks yesterday by Bonner and Nakobe, special teams fumbles, a different thing. But the turnovers are starting to come, and the Eagles are starting to win that battle, obviously with Jalen playing clean football. How important are turnovers to a good defense, guys?
Huge.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at there are a million statistics in football. Maybe more. But there are a lot of statistics, but then there are certain statistics that have a direct correlation with winning and losing.
Yep.
And the turnover ratio, the plus-minus turnover ratio is one that's an absolute dead certain indicator of whether you're going to win or whether you're going to lose. And, when you look at the Eagles last year, I mean, they were finished, minus 10? You know, it's very, very hard. It's very hard to win big in the NFL if you're minus 10 giveaway, takeaway. Yeah. And that was one of the things that they knew coming into this year that they had to improve. They had to get better about taking the ball away from the other team and cut down on their own turnovers, obviously. But, they've brought a few new guys in on the defense now. And Mitchell and DeJean, the two rookies, are playing really good, and they have made an enormous difference on the back end of your defense.
Early in the season, when they were not getting any takeaways and Jalen was committing too many turnovers, they were going back to last year, I want to say they had a streak of 16 games where they had not won the turnover battle. I mean, a couple of times they had broken even, but
the last game where they had before the streak, the last game where they had actually won the turnover battle was the game they won at Arrowhead last year.
Yeah.
That was the last one. Every game since then, they were either even or minus,
That's
and most
amazing.
of the time minus.
I didn't realize that.
And and going back to the other side of the ball, I've been really impressed. I mean, Jalen, last year was a turnover machine. I mean, I think only Josh Allen had more turnovers than he did. Early this year, you were starting to wonder if things were going to change at all. And, now he's got 5 straight games without an interception, 4 straight games without a turnover. Yesterday, you saw him do things that I was really impressed with that he hadn't been willing to do. Throw to the running back, hit the check down. He's starting to do that. I mean, Kellen Moore's kind of drummed that into him. So, I mean, he's starting to, become when they get Jordan Mailata back and he's got even better protection than he's getting now. I mean, Fred Johnson had a tough day yesterday, but I think we're looking at a version of the 2022 Jalen right now.
You mentioned Jordan Mailata. Obviously, he's had another week. Ray, you've been around a long time, and you've seen a lot of great offensive line coaches, both with the Eagles and around the NFL. You worked at NFL Films. You've seen the work of everybody. I mean, Jeff Stoutland seems like he could take my 8-month-old nephew and make him a reasonably decent NFL player. How good is he both at identifying talent and then when he brings him in, teaching him how to play within the synchronicity of an offensive line?
Yeah, that you're right. It is. There are 2 phases to it. One is the ability to recognize the talent that a guy can play, and then developing that talent. Yeah. And they're really 2 different things. And some guys are good at one, not necessarily great at the other. And then there's the rare guy who's really good at both, and Jeff is. I mean, I've always thought that the best offensive line coach, the 2 best offensive line coaches I ever saw were Joe Bugel in Washington and Jim Hanifin, who was around, like, coached for everybody at some point or another. And they were really, really good at both of those things.
I think we're Howard Mudd in that group too, maybe, huh?
Yeah, Howard Mudd probably too. I'd had less contact with Mudd than I did the other guys. But I thought that those guys were really good, and Stoutland is right there with them. I mean, you look at the way he prepares his guys. If somebody goes down during a game, the guy that comes in is prepared to play, and that's coaching. I mean, he makes sure that everybody in that room is prepared to play come kickoff time. That's not always true, but the best example is what he did with Mulata.
Yeah.
I mean, what he did. Take a guy who never played
Never
down
took a
a
snap.
football,
Never bent down and didn't even
And
know how to
drafted him.
stand.
didn't know how to
Didn't
put
even
the
know.
uniform on.
Drafted him, not
Yeah.
just sign him off the street.
Seventh round pick. The thing was, everybody kind of knew who he was because he was working out on the West Coast and he had gone to a couple of those camps, and so everybody knew who he was. And somebody was going to sign him, but Howie, I give him Howie credit. I mean, Howie said, let's use a pick on him. Let's not just try and bid for him. Let's just make sure we got his right. So they took him in the 7th round, and he said, however long it takes to get him ready to play, by the time we got him on the field, he's going to be worth it. And boy, he has been.
He sure has been, and he'll come back in a couple weeks. We'll talk about Howie when we come back, and O'Donnell has something to say about Jeff Stoutland. The trade deadline is tomorrow. Something else is tomorrow. By the way, make sure you exercise your right as a citizen to vote. Don't worry about what side or the other. Just vote. Get your right as a U.S. citizen. It's the most important right, in my opinion, that we have. We will be back. It's your right to listen to the Independence Blue Cross Monday Night Kickoff here from the Great American Pub in Conshohocken. Come on down, say hi to Ray, and we'll be back in a second following this.
Since 1991, the Great American Pub in Conshohocken has been offering an authentic and memorable experience for guests looking to dine in or enjoy the bar and nightlife. Located at 123 Fayette Street in Conshohocken, the Great American Pub has all your craft beer selections and some of the best food options anywhere. While you're there trying their buffalo chicken spring rolls or Maryland crab cakes, enjoy your favorite sporting events on their numerous televisions surrounding the bar. Visit them at 123 Fayette Street in Conshohocken or learn more online at thegreatamericanpub.com.
At Independence Blue Cross, we take care of the people who take care of you. Everyday heroes like firefighters, police officers, teachers, farmers, and healthcare workers. Doctors and hospitals across the region have IBX, and they know what it means to have reliable access to care. So whether you're saving lives or just trying to live a healthier life, count on IBX, the region's #1 health insurer for 85 years. Learn more at IBX.com.
A truly unique dining experience awaits you at Fogo de Chão. Fogo de Chão awes patrons with their history and tradition of authentic Brazilian steakhouse, offering many cuts of decadent fire-roasted meats prepared over an open fire and served tableside by trained gaucho chefs. Fogo de Chão, 1337 Chestnut Street in Center City, Philadelphia. For reservations, go to www.fogo.com or call 215-636-9700.
We now return to the Great American Pub in Conshohocken for the Independence Blue Cross Monday Night Kickoff Show. Once again, here are your hosts, Paul Domowitch and Paul Jolovitz.
Alrighty, back here at the Independence Blue Cross Monday Night Kickoff, we have two future offensive linemen for the Eagles sitting over there. Jeff Stoutland could probably put those guys in, guys, and they could play tomorrow. Probably a little undersized, but he's a wizard at what he does. Tom, what do you think about Stoutland?
Well, we were talking about Mulata earlier. I mean, yeah. Jordan Mulata's name is going to be on Jeff Stoutland's tombstone because, I mean, anybody that – I mean, the guy obviously had talent, but when you can take a player from Australia that was playing rugby and turn him into a Pro Bowl level offensive tackle, that's pretty impressive. It
is pretty impressive. And Ray mentioned Howie Roseman. Howie is in fast mode now, 24 hours, give or take, till the trading deadline tomorrow, November 5th. Eagles obviously need an edge rusher. Every trade has money consequences, draft picks, future, current. You got to balance it all. A lot more trades in the last few years than we've ever seen at the deadline before. A couple made today. Ray, do the Eagles go big? Do they go small? Do they make a deal around the league? What do you see? Soup to nuts. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, I don't think they're going to do anything big. I mean, but I agree with you. If there's one thing that they could use, it would be one more good pass rusher. Yeah. I think that, we were talking before we came on the air that, Brandon Graham played, what'd you say, 35 snaps or something?
50%.
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot. I mean, that's more than you projected coming into this year you were going to ask of him. Yeah. And if he's playing that many snaps now at midseason, if he has to keep playing that many, by the end of the season, he's going to be feeling it. Yes. So it would be, Huff has been a major disappointment. You're not getting much out of him. Sweat has played well and played well yesterday.
Couple sacks, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but you could use another guy out there. You could use another guy who's a pure edge rusher. And if that kind of guy is available, and you said if the price isn't too high in terms of what you'd have to give up, and in terms of salary, what salary you'd be taking on, how that would work or not work against the cap, I think, is Howie looking around? Certainly he's looking around. But there would have to be a fit. But if it were to be any area in specifics, I would say probably an edge rusher.
Receiver, Domo, maybe a third receiver. Dotson's made a nice catch yesterday. Hadn't exactly put the world on fire. You can use depth anywhere, but see Howie doing anything?
I don't see him going for a receiver. I mean, Grant Calcaterra has played so well that when Dallas Goedert comes back, they're going to find a way to use both of them where maybe more 12 personnel. They had been playing a lot of 12 personnel until yesterday.
Yep.
When they obviously just felt that keeping Jacksonville in a nickel defense was the way to go. I think it probably was a benefit in the running game. It's one of the reasons that Saquon had so much success up the middle and on inside zones. So, I agree with Ray. I mean, edge rusher is what there's not going to be a big one out there that you can go and get because they're not I don't think they're willing to really give up anything.
No Max Crosby, no Myles Garrett,
right.
obviously.
I mean, Nolan Smith is starting to contribute a little bit, but you can't have – I mean, Bryce Huff at this point, I don't know that the light's ever going to go on, at least not this season, and you can't have Brandon Graham playing. He played nearly 70% of the snaps yesterday. By the playoffs, he'll be roadkill. So they need to find somebody that can – what they're doing right now, and it's one of the reasons I think Vic has increased the number of zone blitzes. He can take advantage of Zach Bond and Nakobe Dean as a pass rusher, and it kind of softens the blow of not having Bryce Huff giving you anything on the outside. But, yesterday he played one snap, went to the bench. They claim it was a finger injury, but he came back in the game in the fourth quarter and played another 5 snaps, so it wasn't that serious. He just wasn't good enough to be out there.
Guys, Election Day tomorrow, again, we mentioned it a couple times. There's a parade scheduled through Center City that wasn't originally scheduled. The Eagles, obviously, if they win the Super Bowl, will have a parade down Broad Street. But there's a parade tomorrow for the Eagles scoring a touchdown in the first quarter, a point in the first quarter yesterday, a quarter that had been forgotten before that. How excited were you, Ray, to see the Eagles scoring with their foot on the throttle a little bit earlier than normal?
It was nice to see. It was nice to see. And, set up by a really good special teams play.
Yep.
I mean, Sidney Brown, who I think is a really good player in the making. He hasn't gotten a big opportunity yet. There was an injury that set him back some. But I saw him play at Illinois. And, man, he is around the football. And I just have a feeling he's going to be a factor in that secondary at some point. I mean, he's too good not to. And his contribution to this point has been on special teams, but that was a big one. Forcing that fumble, the Eagles recover, and then they take it in, and they finally get that first quarter touchdown. It was just – some of the games where you kind of understood it because – the Cincinnati game, they almost didn't have a ball. They didn't have an offensive play in the first quarter. You kind of understand that. But sometimes, they were slow getting underway. And, yesterday finally getting out front, that was a nice thing. But then they wound up hanging on by their fingernails at the end through some sloppiness on their part, but also some very, I'll say it again, some very questionable coaching by the head coach.
Tomo, we talked about the beginning of the game. Let's talk before the game for a second as we get into the lighthearted section before we turn to the Cowboys game. What's going on around the NFL? Robert De Niro tailgating with the Eagles yesterday, campaigning. A few fans got to meet an Oscar winner. You never know what expected in an Eagle game, do you?
No, you don't. I wasn't aware that he was there until you mentioned it.
Yep, Robert De Niro was there.
That's great.
Cowboys, obviously, Sunday. If this was a boxing match, you'd say they have a chance to land maybe the knockout blow to the Cowboys, who are a dumpster fire right now. Dak Prescott out a few weeks. CeeDee Lamb maybe going to play. Even if he does, Dallas done nothing, losing to Atlanta yesterday. Eagles fans, they want to beat the Cowboys more than anything. To me, it's about the Super Bowl. Obviously, you want to beat the Cowboys internally. How big of a chance, Ray? How excited should the Eagle fans be, not only going 7-2, but giving maybe what might be a death blow to the Cowboys this weekend?
Oh, Eagles fans will love that. I mean, beating the Cowboys is always sweet, but if you can basically bury them, which this certainly would, yeah, so much the better. And you're going to be playing them without Dak Prescott. From what I heard today, CeeDee Lamb will play. He has a sprained shoulder, but they feel like he'll be ready to go. But it'll be Cooper Rush throwing the ball.
No Parsons?
And not Dak Prescott, no.
No Parsons, no Deron
And
Bland.
no, they think Parsons will be back.
Oh,
For
they
this game?
They think Parsons will be back. Lawrence, DeMarcus Lawrence, probably not, but they think they will get Parsons back. But the Cowboys were. It was a very odd off season for the Cowboys. I thought I couldn't figure out what they were doing in the draft. Jerry Jones, who's normally very aggressive about pursuing guys in the off season in terms of free agency, was very quiet.
Let me just interrupt you for a second. Do you think any of that had to do with him saving money for a few guys that were going to require big deals like Prescott, like Lamb, like Parsons? Was that part of it, do you think?
That seemed to be. I mean, that seemed to be his strategy. But because he was planning to give Prescott the big contract, he did want to give – Lamb was wanting the big contract, so he was going to be paying them money. Probably took money away from other guys that he wanted to make some moves. But he couched it all by saying, we're all – I want everybody to know we're all in this year. Well, your offseason didn't suggest to me that you were all in. Bringing Mike McCarthy back as head coach didn't suggest to me that you were all in. And right now, they're probably one of the 5-6 worst teams in the league.
Yeah.
I mean, I think they're really that far down right now. And I mean, the Eagles should go in there and just bury that team. Now, you hesitate to say that because they haven't won down there in 6 years.
Yeah.
But I mean, looking the way the two teams match up right now, I mean, to me, that's what I said in the first half hour here is if I'm the Eagles, I'm going into this with the idea we're going to bury these guys in the first half and sit out our guys in the second half so they're rested for the game on Thursday. Because that's the bigger game, frankly.
Yeah, the Commanders game. Damo, if you had to coach Water to run down Niagara Falls, would you hire Mike McCarthy to do so?
I've always thought he was a good coach.
Terrible
I
game
don't think
coach.
this is all his fault. Their front office with Jerry having so much of the influence on personnel decisions is a mess. His son isn't much better. This is a team that's not going to be good for a while now because I don't see them having the capability and the people there to turn things around.
And the offensive line's starting to break down.
Yeah, exactly. That was always one of their strengths.
Yeah, and it's not anymore.
No.
Well, it's luckily for the Eagles, they have an opening there. Commanders and them, two teams in the division. The NFC doesn't look that tough. When we come back, Ray and Damo are going to go over a few teams. Damo, you got a contender, pretender thing, and we'll go over that, 5 or 6 teams here at the halfway mark. Hard to have a halfway mark of a 17-game season with buys and without. But we'll talk about that. By the way, guys, there's no buys last week. 1 bye 2 weeks ago. Whoever does the schedule in the NFL, they are putting together a puzzle that God knows how they do it. They gave a great game to Germany, too, this week. Before we take a break, Tom, I know how excited you are about the game at Allianz Arena in Munich. Who is it this Sunday?
Yeah, Carolina and the Giants. Boy,
Wow.
It makes you want to just get on a plane and fly 7 hours over there to see it.
We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the NFL, Monday Night Football night, Kansas City, Tampa Bay. We had a firing today. We had a coordinator fired. Talk around the NFL with Ray Didinger and Paul Domowitch. Final segment continues from the Great American Pub in Conshohocken right after this.
Since 1991, the Great American Pub in Conshohocken has been offering an authentic and memorable experience for guests looking to dine in or enjoy the bar and nightlife. Located at 123 Fayette Street in Conshohocken, the Great American Pub has all your craft beer selections and some of the best food options anywhere. While you're there trying their buffalo chicken spring rolls or Maryland crab cakes, enjoy your favorite sporting events on their numerous televisions surrounding the bar. Visit them at 123 Fayette Street in Conshohocken or learn more online at thegreatamericanpub.com.
At Independence Blue Cross, we take care of the people who take care of you. Everyday heroes like firefighters, police officers, teachers, farmers, and healthcare workers. Doctors and hospitals across the region have IBX, and they know what it means to have reliable access to care. So whether you're saving lives or just trying to live a healthier life, count on IBX, the region's #1 health insurer for 85 years. Learn more at IBX.com.
A truly unique dining experience awaits you at Fogo de Chão. Fogo de Chão awes patrons with their history and tradition of authentic Brazilian steakhouse, offering many cuts of decadent fire-roasted meats prepared over an open fire and served tableside by trained gaucho chefs. Fogo de Chão, 1337 Chestnut Street in Center City, Philadelphia. For reservations, go to www.fogo.com or call 215-636-9700.
We now return to the Great American Pub in Conshohocken for the Independence Blue Cross Monday Night Kickoff Show. Once again, here are your hosts, Paul Domowitch and Paul Jolovitz.
Alrighty, final segment here. We're going to get to the NFL, but Ray has a play that some of you might have seen. I saw it the year it came out. It's fantastic. It's about Ray's childhood with Tommy McDonald with the Eagles, called Tommy and Me. Where can fans go to see it, Ray? I know it's coming back.
Yeah, it's going to be coming back in January to a new theater, People's Light Theater in Malvern. Really nice theater out there. This will be the seventh different theater.
Wow.
This will be the seventh different theater to host Tommy and Me. We have talked to the People's Light folks over time. They've wanted us to come out there. We've wanted to go out there, but we could never quite, the timing just never quite fit. But this year, it did, so we're going to be there in January, People's Light Theater in Malvern. Tickets are indeed on sale, so you go to the People's Light website, you can already buy your tickets. Some people are buying them already, and hopefully the Eagles, the real Eagles, will still be playing in January.
That'll be great. It'll be a lot of fun. You also have something going with my ex-WIP compadre who retired. Both of them, actually. One didn't retire, one did. Glenn Macnow and Joe Conklin. Tell us about that.
Yeah, we created a show called The Greatest Moments in Philadelphia Sports, and it's a countdown of what we consider to be the 10 greatest moments in Philadelphia sports. And we get up and we talk about them. We show some pictures. We show some film clips. We talk a little backstory, and then Joe Conklin provides the voices. So Joe Conklin brings Harry Callis, he brings Charlie Manuel, he brings Bobby Clark, Bernie Perrant, all of those folks. Joe provides the soundtrack for it, and then we provide the pictures and the information. So that will be at the Swarthmore Players Club, the Players Club of Swarthmore, in December 13th. We did it once before. We did actually 2 shows at the Ardmore Music Hall just to try it out and see how it worked, and it went great. People really loved it, so we're going to do it again December at the Players Club of Swarthmore.
So the whole retirement thing is really a ruse, right?
You guys are both retired.
My wife would tell you that.
All right, Damo, I know you wanted to play a little bit of a contender-pretender thing as we sit at the halfway mark with a Monday night game on the docket, the division in the balance, the conferences. Fire away.
Yeah, let's play legit or fraud, Ray. I got 5 teams here. I'm going to throw at you, and you tell me whether they're playing pretty well right now, and you tell me whether you think they're the real deal as far as being able to make a deep playoff run this year, or whether they're frauds.
Okay.
Why don't we start with a team that's playing tonight? Tampa Bay. They're 4-4, going up against undefeated Kansas City.
I am not a believer in the Buccaneers. And that seems odd coming from a Philadelphia person because the Buccaneers beat the Eagles like a drum. But I just don't buy it, especially now when they're down the 2 wide receivers, when they're missing. Mike Evans is just a great player, and I think that I can't imagine that they're going to sustain this. Yeah. I give Baker Mayfield a lot of credit. I mean, he's resurrected his career. That's fine for him. But do I believe in them as a team that can make a deep run? No.
Yeah, my wife loves Baker because of his Oklahoma roots, but I just got a feeling Baker's about ready to kind of level off, and so are the Bucs.
By the way, congratulations to Shelley, your wife. Oklahoma somehow found a way to get by Maine this weekend as they march through the SEC.
You're playing with fire, Jolly. You are playing with fire. Let's move on to Atlanta. 5-3. They just destroyed the Cowboys for what it's worth, and I'm not sure it's worth much, but can they do something in that division and beyond in the playoffs with Kirk Cousins?
I think they could win the division, but I don't see them doing much in the postseason because they can't rush the quarterback.
Yeah.
I mean, but offensively, Cousins, I've come around on Kirk Cousins. I used to just think he was just sort of a guy.
Yeah, it's just.
But I got to tell you, I'm a believer in him. I think he's a tough guy who can, if you put decent people around him, he will score points. But defensively, I think they're just kind of average. And the thing that's going to kill him is the pass rush or lack of it.
Are you as high on Penix as I and some other people are? I think he's the best quarterback come out of college last year. I think he's going to show it whenever he plays. What are your thoughts on Michael Penix?
I liked him. Daniels was my number one guy coming out. I liked him better than Williams. I liked him the best of the whole bunch. I just thought he was exceptional in so many ways, and he's kind of proving that now. But Penix, I think when Penix gets his opportunity, I think he's going to be a good player, Paul.
All righty, Damo, fire away. Team number 3.
A team that struggled with the Giants this week, but has managed to be 7-2. A team that the Eagles are going to have to deal with in 2 weeks. Washington. How legit are they?
I think they are. I think they are. I was a little skeptical until I actually saw them the last couple of weeks, and I think they are legit. I really do. Dan Quinn's a good coach, and Daniels, I just said a moment ago, was a guy that I thought was just an extraordinary prospect coming out of college. He's just so poised. He's so mature. He's so under control. Throws the ball beautifully. He's obviously very elusive. I don't know how bad the rib injury is. He played with it this week. Yeah. I don't. If he can stay healthy, they're going to be a thing. Because the thing with Washington now is they're a young team that's hungry and gaining confidence by the week. I mean that when you win a game like they won against the Bears, I mean that's the kind of game that all of a sudden you start to kind of believe that maybe you know what, maybe we can do this. And with each succeeding week, each time they win a game, that team's going to get a little more confidence and are going to be dangerous. That's going to be a tough game for the Eagles in 2 weeks.
Sure is.
Speaking of the Chicago game, I mean, I think what the Eagles did on Sunday with regard to Nakobe Dean's interception kind of can do the same thing for that defense and making them believe that even though they didn't play particularly well in the second half, that you survive and make a big play when you need it. It changes things. Another team the Eagles got to play very shortly, the Rams, 4-4, beat Seattle Sunday. What do you think with them?
I think they're dangerous. I know they got off to a terrible start, but you see they're kind of putting things together now. And I think that's going to be a tough game for the Eagles out there. I mean, it looked like a couple weeks ago that whole thing was just going to collapse, but it hasn't. Yeah. And they seem to be getting better, and that was a big win for them up in Seattle. Yeah. So I think they're going to be in it. Right? That division is kind of wide open now. I mean, the 49ers are just so beat up that the Rams are now looking at the possibility that they might wind up winning this thing.
Where do you put McVay in your coaching pantheon of current coaches?
I think he's very good. I think he's very, very good. I think he's a tremendously creative offensive coach. I don't know how much longer he's going to do it because every year he keeps talking like he wants to retire.
Still the youngest. He's been there 7 years. Still the youngest coach in the NFL. That's amazing.
Yeah. Well, everybody kind of knew that he was going to be a really good coach. It was just a question of when he was going to get the opportunity. I don't think anybody thought it was going to come that soon. But no, he's an extremely, extremely good coach. And you can see that he and Stafford have a really good coach-quarterback understanding that benefits the whole organization. So I kind of believe in the Rams because of the way that division sits right now. They have a chance, I think, to win the whole thing.
Yeah.
Number 5, Donald?
Last but certainly not least, a team that's 6-3 has one of the best young quarterbacks in the league in C.J. Stroud. But somehow managed to lose last Thursday night to the New York Jets and Aaron Rodgers. Are they ready to make a serious run in the AFC?
I don't think so. I watched that game and I saw, you know what? I don't think so. I think Stroud's a good quarterback, and I think he's going to be a factor for a while. He's got a lot of talent, and he's young, and you can see he's kind of the guy on that team. You can see it. But I just don't know that they have all of the pieces they need to make a real run in the AFC against some of the teams you got over there. I tell you, we didn't put him in the you certainly wouldn't put him in the fraud category. But if you're not a believer in the Lions now, you're not paying attention.
No,
okay?
Absolutely.
Because a lot of people just have this habit. You can't take the Lions seriously because they're the Lions. Well, you better take them seriously now.
All right, well, to that effect, guys, obviously they are what they are. Dan Campbell is who he is. A couple years ago, they traded Stafford for Goff and a bunch of other stuff, won a Super Bowl. Now, I mean, is that a trade, Ray and Paul, that looks like it's going to work out well for both teams? Goff is playing out of his mind.
Yeah, and I mean Stafford already won them a Super Bowl. Yeah, I mean Goff right now is a legitimate MVP candidate. So yeah, it's. I mean he's got a terrific cast around him. I mean nobody does it by themselves, And I'm not sure Goff is the kind of quarterback you could, that's going to could put a team on its shoulders and win by himself. Do the things that maybe a guy with a little bit more athleticism like Lamar Jackson or Patrick Mahomes could do. But he's still a great quarterback.
83% completions,
Yeah.
right? Through half a year.
Every game you look at his stats, and he's like 16 for 18. He never throws an incompletion, never throws an interception. He's not spectacular, but he's just really good. I mean, this is kind of the player he was in college. The thing with the Lions is, I think when Hutchinson got hurt, I was one of the people that said, well, I don't know if they're going to be able to overcome. I don't know if they're going to be able to overcome that.
They've
kind of rallied around that.
Yep.
I mean, he was probably the defensive player of the year to that point.
Yeah.
How do you replace a guy like that? Well, they have, and right now they're another one of those teams that every week they're gaining confidence, and they feel like they're the best team in the league, and right now they might be.
It's funny. You go back to last year when they lost in the playoffs. One of the things that everybody pointed to was Dan Campbell's insistence on going for it on fourth down a lot. They came up short in that attempt when they lost, which is kind of, I mentioned that only because of Nick's insistence on going for it on fourth down. But that's probably the only similarity between Nick and Dan Campbell right now.
All right, final thing, Ray, and we appreciate you coming out tonight. We love having you. The NFL, Domo didn't mention this team. They're pretty good. They inexplicably have lost a couple games to inferior teams. I know you're a big guy on fit. There's no such thing as a perfect fit. Nothing's perfect in life. But Derrick Henry and the Ravens is pretty close, isn't it?
It is. And there's a real mixed opinion on him going to Baltimore. People wondering how much he had left. Yeah. Was he going to be a fit in that offense? How were he and Lamar Jackson going to work together? Well, you can see it's working together beautifully. And right now, they're tough. I mean, the Eagles have to play down there in a couple of weeks, and that's going to be a real challenge. And Henry is he is a powerful runner. I mean, he is a powerful runner. And the combination of his inside power and the threat that Jackson has on being able to take the ball and get to the edges is a very hard thing for a defense to deal with.
Much like Saquon is having that effect on Jalen, we're seeing the same thing down there with Henry and the effect he's having on Lamar Jackson.
And that's the only stadium, if I'm correct, that the Eagles haven't won in, right, in the NFL now?
I can't remember them winning a game down there.
Yeah, it was Cincinnati and Baltimore, and they won in Cincinnati this year, so yeah.
Next 4 games, the Eagles are kind of tough. We will see. At Dallas, Washington Thursday night, then at the Rams, at the Ravens. We'll be here after each one of those games, 6 o'clock Monday night at the Great American Pub. We are proud to have had Ray Didinger with us tonight. Hope everybody goes see the play. Hope everybody goes see the thing with Joe Conklin and Glenn Macnow. Best of luck and everything, Ray, and thanks for being here.
Appreciate it, Paul.
Thanks
it was
for being here.
It was really a lot of fun. Thank you.
Thanks very much. And Damo, let's do it again next week. Thanks so much.
You betcha. I'm counting the days.
Counting the days. Till next Monday at 6. We'll be here at the Great American Pub in Conshohocken. Chris Surmer has produced this fine program. Gus Barber, great job back at the station. For Paul Domowitch and Ray Didinger, I'm Paul Jolovitz for the Independence Blue Cross Monday Night Kickoff, saying see you next week, and go Eagles.
Good job.
You're listening to 1490 WBCB and on your FM dial at 107.3 W297CL Levittown.
There's no place like home. Your